Here's a quick look into today's episode.
That's kind of the culture that you try to create. And I think the number one job of any commander, any leader, is to create culture in an organization. Because if you have the right attitude, if you have the right culture, you're holding yourself accountable, you're doing the little things right, the results will follow. But if you try to focus just on the results without getting that team right, you're going to find there's something that's kind of undercutting it. It's always a struggle in everything you do.
What did you expect going into JPMRC? And did you have any bias? Have you heard any stories before? And it was like, if we get anything right, we got to get this right.
I've done a lot of CTCs, I've done a lot of training events. This is by far the best, most realistic CTC I've ever done. I'll tell you, it's about what I expected. The weather is severely unpredictable. I think we went from 48 degrees to negative 33 degrees. So the conditions are going to be harsh. You're going to have a determined enemy who's going to fight their butts off. And I was an Arctic Wolf before, right? And I remember fighting 3G when they came to jump in. And there's a way the Arctic Wolves fight. So I remember telling the folks, hey, they're going to be determined. Their camouflage is going to be great. They're going to fight their butt off. They're going to understand us better because they've got their intelligence out there.
There's three things that we do here at JPMRC. Number one, you're going to have more things to do than you have task organization to do. So we're mission accomplished, right? Number two, you're always going to have a current operations problem that is really hard to solve. And you're going to have a future operations problem that's really hard to solve. Both of those happening at the same time.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership. And not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people.
Well, hey, for those of you guys that don't know me, I am Matt Leclair. I'm the commander for the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center, JPMRC, the Army's newest combat training center here in Hawaii, where our purpose is to prepare brigade combat teams to be ready, combat credible, regionally aligned forces so that they're ready in the theater. They're ready to do what the nations are going to ask them to do, and they're going to be able to do it in the terrain and in the area where being asked. We just wrapped up our latest rotation here in Alaska with the 2nd Brigade, 11th Airborne Division, Colonel Jimmy Howell, the Spartan Brigade. Soon I'll do another one of these with the Arctic Wolves, Colonel Chris Brawley, and the Arctic Wolves, who are our Op 4 for this rotation. We did this with the 11th Airborne Division, and our senior trainer was Major General Hilbert. First thing is we could not do what we do out here at JPMRC if it wasn't for the support of the 11th Airborne Division, the 25th Infantry Division for our Hawaii rotations and our Philippines rotations, our Corps, United States Army Pacific, the phenomenal people that we get to support this organization. And JRTC, they bring their OCs out here to help round us out for these. We couldn't do it if it wasn't for those folks that were out here helping us to make this the absolute best exercises that we can, all the way from the soldier to the brigade commander that's out here and the division. So this episode right now, this is with Jimmy Howell, Spartan 6. The Spartan Brigade just got done with their rotation. If we start talking and it seems like we've known each other for a long time, that's absolutely because we have. We were captains together. We were majors together. We were company commanders together. He was the Battalion S3 when I was the Battalion XO in 1st ROC in the 173rd. So if it seems like two friends talking about our profession, that's absolutely, because it is, and you're correct with that. So, but I'll kind of shut up there, Jimmy. Will you? Because not everybody's going to know you. Not everybody knows you as well as I do. Who are you? Real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe why you joined the Army in the first place, and then we'll kind of segue into what makes the Spartan Brigade out here so special.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to say, I've done a lot of CTCs, I've done a lot of training events. This is by far the best, most realistic CTC I've ever done. And just thanks to the JPMRC team for putting on such a world-class show. I love the phrase "little O, big C." just the right amount of coaching to make sure we saw ourselves and continue to improve. So I just want to say thanks. Awesome. Yeah, so Jimmy Howell, Southeast Texas, born and raised down there. I'm a husband, I'm a dad. I got 5 daughters, 9-year-old all the way up to 18, and did not think I would ever go in the Army. Like, last thing I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to go play football somewhere, and I'm like, no, I'm going to go to a big school in Texas and play. And then I realized, one, hey, maybe you're not as great as you think you are, and you need to consider some of the other options. So I went to West Point to play football. And then once I got there, started to figure out, what I wanted to do long term. And I initially thought, hey, West Point's got a lot to offer me. But then over time, you start to transition and you realize how much you have to offer the country and the nation. And I really like the Army stuff, and I like the infantry. So I started doing that. And I was like, all right, we're going to go 10th Mountain Division, Triple Deuce. I'll be a light infantry platoon leader. So I did that, and things went kind of well. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing all right. I was like, let's see if I can go to the Ranger Regiment. Went to the Ranger Regiment, 275. Worked for some phenomenal leaders there who taught me like everything I need to know about small unit training. General Pat Work, then General Scott Namo, my 2 company commanders. And then after that, I'm like, I'll keep going. War's going on, and feel like you're doing something good. And so I just kind of continued on, and primarily light, airborne, and Ranger assignments. Was a Striker Battalion commander up north at Fort Wainwright. So we didn't stay there. We ended up in Syria, but started to understand a little bit more about what it takes to fight and survive and thrive and everything up here. And then super fortunate to come back to command the Spartan Brigade down in J Bear. So never thought a Texas guy would end up in Alaska, but it has been awesome. And I'll tell you, as we think about what the brigade is and the culture that you want to create. I mean, I get a lot of that from my family and friends and just values growing up. And I want the unit to feel like a family. I know there's discussion like, hey, is it a family? Is it not? It's close enough for me, right? Like, you got to care for each other. The soldiers have got to feel that. Because I think if they're in a unit with a good mission and they got leaders that take care of them and they're prepared, then that's all they want, right? And so you got to care for your people, but that means that you want to be high performing. You got to develop each other. We got to hold ourselves accountable, right? Always be improving. How do you build that growth mindset in an organization where you're both high performing, but you want to grow, which means that you are, training versus testing, right? If you're training, you always want to get better. You're looking for those things that you could get better on. If you're testing all the time, people want to pass the test, right? And so you've got to create, even with this. I mean, it's a little bit of a test. This is training, and so we want to improve. We don't want to be defensive and protect the image that we have, so we can get the best score on the test. And so anyway, I think that's kind of the culture that you try to create. And I think the number one job of any commander, any leader, is to create culture in an organization. Because if you have the right attitude, if you have the right culture, you're holding yourself accountable, you're doing the little things right, then the results will follow that. But if you want to focus just on the results without getting that team right, you're going to find there's something that's kind of undercutting you. And it's always a struggle in everything you do all the time. But I think that's what makes the brigade so great. I tell people all the time, I think we have the best mission in the Army. I mean, everything that we're doing in the Arctic and Indo-Pacific, it's not just the Arctic, right? It's extreme cold weather mountains. There's a lot of places. If you look at Korea, you look at Eastern Europe, where you can take folks that are comfortable fighting in these positions, in these conditions, and apply it to different regions. So it's not just the Arctic, even though that is what we're doing. But it starts with great leadership, right? I think it starts with character. We got this thing, the 5 C's we talk about all the time in the organization. It's got to start in here with your character, your purpose. That's got to be aligned. And I'll tell folks, like, hey, no one's character is perfect. Jesus ain't the room, right?
Yeah.
We all have something to work on. Start with the Army values, and we work really, really hard to train that and educate people, help them see themselves, and improve that area to get the leadership right? Get the purpose right. So it starts with character, right? Then competence. Everyone wants a great leader, someone who's good at their job. No one wants a bad leader to lead them. And so, like, developing people is huge. And so, everybody's kind of got their level 2 levels down. Sometimes we'll go way down and work with squad leaders and platoon sergeants and then bring it back up. But try to 8-step training model, right? Try to develop people before they have to do anything. And then the third one is commitment. There's a scale of commitment, right? I mean, you have some folks that will go over. It does not matter how many obstacles they have between them and the objective. They're gonna get there. There's some folks that really see the benefit and will get there, but after a few they'll stop. And you have some other folks that I see the benefit, but I don't know if I want to get there. So, like, how do you increase commitment in the organization? And then you got to care for your people. The Army is people. Soldiers know if you don't care for them, you do all that stuff. You build cohesion, right? So that's kind of the model that we. And I tell every soldier, like, hey, that's what you should expect from your leaders, and from the leaders, hey, this is what I expect from you. Well, nobody's perfect. We've all got things to improve on, and so when we look at leader development, we spend a lot of effort there, and then just preparing for the things we got to execute. So I think that's what makes the Spartan Brigade special. We got great people, especially in the Army. People are even better.
Well, I've been watching, the 11th Airborne Division from afar, and now I get to see it, kind of grow, come together, and ultimately be what it is. And I saw that culture throughout the entire rotation, out there at the key moments. And it was clear, too, that they didn't just decide on day 5 to all of a sudden be a Spartan and to follow and have that character and have that commitment and be competent, right? There's things that have to be done in order to prepare them for that. So what did you expect going into JPMRC? And like, did you have any bias? Like, have you heard any stories before? And it was like, if we get anything right, we got to get this right as we kind of go into preparation.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's about what I expected. Right, the weather is severely unpredictable, and I think we went from 48 degrees to negative 33 degrees in about a 10-day period. So the conditions are going to be harsh. You're going to have Chris Farley's on the other side of the room, so he's listening in. Like, you're going to have a determined enemy who is going to fight their butts off. And I was an Arctic Wolf before, right? And I remember fighting 3G when they came to jump in, and like, there's a way the Arctic Wolves fight. So I remember telling the folks, like, hey, they're going to be determined. Their camouflage is going to be great. They're going to fight their butt off. They're going to understand us better because they've got their intelligence out there and their reconnaissance. So I knew they were going to be determined. We wanted to take some lessons from the last JPMRC. This brigade went through 2 years ago, and so we took lessons fighting in YTA, which was super, super tough, like 4 to 8 feet of snow. It was in March, it was a little bit warmer, but just movement was really hard. We got lucky because there wasn't quite as much snow up here this year. But we wanted to learn from that. So we took those lessons, we started there. Last year, we did Op 4. Whole brigade staff up here learning the lessons. What made 111 so successful last year? Where are the areas that they struggled? What do we need to change?
Right.
And then we programmed that in, to the training plan. And so, we talked about in the AAR that just wrapped up, folks felt like they were prepared. I felt like we were prepared. And we've done just about everything that we could do. Now, it doesn't mean that we hit the mark every time. Right. There's a lot of things to improve, right? I mean, CG trained my butt off, and like making me fight with the division, I learned a ton. I think everyone learned a ton.
Oh yeah,
systems and processes to improve, but we kind of kept it focused on 2 big areas, right? As the the Airborne Brigade assigned to the Pacific, we knew we had to get the JFE right, and we knew we had to rapidly expand the lodgement and secure the airhead line, because that's where we're super vulnerable. And if the enemy's smart, he's going to try to fix us and just kill us with fire. So we had to push really, really early. So the way we did that is, for this rotation, we dropped 1,000 paratroopers, 64 HE and CDS, 37 airlands over 2 days, battalion air assault timed with the Charlie Echelon of like 700 vehicles, right? So that built, day 1, looked like this, then day 2, then day 3, we're finally FOC. So, this is the one brigade JFE that I get to do, right? At this, we would do other brigade JFEs where we try, and test components of that. Dropping heavy equipment, firing off the drop zone with artillery, the Bravo Echelon autostatics to make sure we can drive on and off of the aircraft. ADAG operations, right? We're seeding, marshaling, putting people out to routes. We did that. We brought in the CRG to help us with that, but we had some training there. When you jump in airfield 10 meters off the hard stand with your chutes, we have to train that because we did not do that well the first time we did it. And so anyway, we focused on JFE things and then war fighting as a brigade. And I think it's important as an airborne brigade, we've got to be really good at the joint forcible entry. That's day 1. And then we've got 10 more days to fight, or 4 more months, or 6 more months, right? And so we've got to be lethal, at the small unit level. We've got to out-soldier the enemy. And that was a challenge that we put to the folks. Hey, out-soldier, right? Make the hard decisions, pull security, be active, zero your miles, understand when you maybe have the enemy on their heels, and you can keep pressing the fight. Even in these conditions, right? There's a tempo thing you've got to do, so folks aren't really sweating when they're pulling. But how do we use logistics to pull some of that stuff behind us so the paratroopers can walk with less of a load? Using cab and fires to shape the fight, and then, realistic tempo in the offense. And so we had every unit's got their training glide path. We did a brigade FTX, which was crucial for us. One battalion's the op4, we fought them, really let us work out our C2 on our systems and make sure that we understood reporting. We worked through those things, right? And then the last thing was we knew, again, from the last couple of JPRCs, we had to move long distances in extreme conditions. And so we worked on that. Folks moved long distances in extreme conditions, just to build that toughness and grit that we knew that we would need, like in the fourth quarter. But that's kind of what I expected, and some ways that we prepared for it.
There's three things that we do here at the center and at JPMRC. Is number one, you're going to have more things to do than you have task organization to do. So more tasks. Mission accomplished, right? Number two, you're always going to have a current operations problem that is really hard to solve, and you're going to have a future operations problem that's really hard to solve. And so you're always going to have both of those happening at the same time. And so you can't take a break on either one of your current ops or your future operations things. You have to, because they're both going to be hitting you. And then if there's something that we do too, you've always got to be thinking about 24, 48, 72 hours. The division is pushing you to accomplish a mission 2 or 3 days from now that has to be in the back of not just your own mindset, but the rest of your team and your staff. Like, you have to be thinking what I do today and how it impacts the brigade on my left, the other brigade on my right, and what the division is trying to do, or you start to get desynchronized at that point. Was there any point in the exercise, or what was the point where you felt like that hit you right in the face, and maybe what we're doing is not synchronized with what the division is doing, and we need to kind of make a couple adjustments?
Yeah, well, we got hit in the face with problems like that every day, and I think that, look, I think you gotta at the end of the day you gotta prioritize. And so, what are the mission essential things? What are the things that are critical? And then what's enhancing? And so, the first problem I had is I tried to get too deep too early. And so the March objectives, we knew airfield drop zone. We had to secure the airhead line. We had to get down to the cactus. We had to get about 6 kilometers down to a key piece of terrain, the Baker Island thing we talked about along the river. But I committed combat power to that on the most likely enemy scenario. What we got was the most dangerous. And so I should have committed, combat power earlier there in order to really secure the airhead line instead of dealing with this gift that kept on giving. And so I thought it was great the way we prepared. We planned out and issued the order for the first 72 hours that got us through the JFE, expanding the lodgement, and then the brigade attack. And then we thought we knew what the defense would be based on terrain and tempo and sustainment. And so we kind of worked through that. But what we found, I had a co-ops challenge where, as we're trying to get the CAV out, we're trying to understand the enemy, we did not have a great picture. And so I had to spend a lot of personal energy in co-ops just to say, okay, the defense, I don't even know what he's defending. I mean, I got tanks and stuff and everything everywhere. And so, like, all right, avenues of approach, where are we vulnerable? Where do we need to shore up? And I spent a lot of time there, which is not where I want to be spending time. But after we got out of that knife fight, we just kind of fought our way out to again really secure that area. We realized after the fact in the mid-row, hey, that was his defense, and it was desynchronized during the attack. But I think where you want to get is I like to spend more of my time in current operations to make sure that we've got conditions set, right? So we define conditions for transition to the next phase, beginning a certain phase, transition to the next, which was really helpful. It was based on terrain, what's our combat power, the enemy force ratio, sustainment, and C2, right? Like, did we have the resupply that we needed? Did we have C2 in the right conditions? That really helped the current operations team understand the conditions that they needed to set in the near term to win the fight and then transition, right? So, but like the first 24, 48 hours, I had to spend a lot of time in co-ops just to get a good picture of the enemy and then move. But as we continued into the continued attack, into the defense, into the pursuit at the end, again, made sure that co-ops had the fighting products and things that we wanted. I'd look at it really quickly. The field grades did a lot of work there. I spent a lot more time with co-ops and then out in the field, either BFCing or moving around, so I understood the fight. because what I found is it's the brigade's job to help manage transition and the way that and to maintain contact with the enemy with tempo. But the only way I can do that is if I'm in, if a battalion's in a fight right now, he's got to know what he's doing 24 hours later. He needs to have an idea of what we think is going to happen 48 hours later. So what we think the enemy's doing, what our plan is based on that, based on the reconnaissance that we're seeing with our scouts, like 5 or so kilometers deep, what we're able to shape with fires, and then he's got to know and she's got to know this is what's got to be at the combat trains command post that's right behind the front lines, so that I can quickly resupply and I can quickly transition. It's one thing when you're finishing the attack and you're going to a defense, right? That CCL, that UBL looks a certain way. And then immediately after the defense, you transition to the pursuit. That looks a little bit different, right? And so it's a lot of the same things, but not all, right? And so the better that we did that, the more that we were able to maintain tempo and contact.
Sure. Yeah. You kind of went through those 5 conditions, really quickly. And you said, we had to say this hundreds of times to the OCs, to be checking for these conditions, to the staff, check for these conditions.
Yes.
Your commander made it clear these were the 5 things. But it's hard for people to get their arms around that stuff, Do we have the right combat power? Do we have the terrain that we want? Is the sustainment pushed into the right place? Do we understand the enemy? And do I have my command and control in position?
Yeah.
Right? So you made it clear.
Yeah.
That those were the 5 things.
But I'll just say, the way you define those 5 things, like to me, that's the coup-ops transition. I mean, it's the fighting products, right? You got the plan, it's synchronized, you get bottom-up feedback, but then you define the conditions, we get a step closer, and those go on to the X-Check and the other fighting products that get reported.
Right? Yeah. And if you don't do a good job of defining it, like if it was kind of defined, it'll hit you in the face when the weather changes, when the enemy does something different than what you thought, when your higher headquarters speeds things up for you or slows things down for you, right? When those things changed, so you had a lot of bad weather in the first 2 days, and so the jump had to shift 24 hours.
Yeah.
Guess who didn't change?
No.
The enemy's plan. He had more time to prepare. He pushed forward. He got another 24 hours on you to kind of move north.
Yeah.
And so he was in a different position than you originally thought.
Yeah.
How did you start to get your arms around those changes and how that needs to change our courses of action?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story of how we're desynchronizing the brigade attack. One, not realizing that we were necessarily in the brigade attack, so we didn't have a great view on it. But some of the conditions that we needed for the brigade attack. But one, we estimated he was going to be about 3 to 5 kilometers further south in his main defensive area. And so, identifying, you talk, terrain and enemy, identifying his main engagement areas, his obstacles, where he was really defending, and then the avenues of approach. Because the way we got the cav in and how far forward the enemy was, and he was getting calves getting punched. And so we had dedicated combat power. He was essentially securing lines. We couldn't get it out there. So that condition wasn't necessarily met, right? In order to have, timely, accurate, responsive fires, the brigade TOC, which had fought from Fort Wainwright out of contact for the first couple of days, needed to jump and get in so that we could quickly transition to the defense, quickly transition to the pursuit. I didn't want to jump to TOC there. But terrible weather, the enemy boat, a plan that we had on the movement to contact that kind of got desynchronized. We committed to jumping the TOC, and it actually, by the time we're actually doing the brigade attack, it was not in position, which was disaster. Don't do that. So the attack has to fight, and we've got the systems up, but we're not on digital fires, right? So we said, hey, DATADs had to be up. We did not make the condition digital fires, which would force us to get digital fires. So we've got limited throughput as things are going through FATADs, and we're a couple of people are processing targets in the TAC. Fires were not responsive, and so kind of like we did as expanding the lodgement, we're kind of leading with our face. We did the same thing for the brigade attack. But and we knew what the conditions needed to be. We just couldn't get there.
Yeah.
And we had it accurately captured. We just, for a bunch of different reasons, could not execute. And then, as we look at the defense, and if you look at the pursuit, we met all the conditions. We properly defined them, where the cav needed to be, the locations that the artillery needed to jump to range, where we thought we would be in the defense and where we thought we would be in the pursuit. The ammo allocation at the next PAA, CTCP with the extra either class 4 for the defense or AT4s for both of those different missions. And so the better we did that, the better we executed, the better results.
Yeah. So again, much easier said than done. Yeah. Everybody goes in. Here's our doctrine. Here's the playbook. This is that's what you got to do. You got to pass. You got to run. You got to block. Yeah. Right. Why do they go out? Why do people go out there and not do well? Why is it? Why were you guys so successful? Right. What were those fighting products that you were using?
Yeah.
And had you been using those for a while? So that you've been using those in other training exercises where we all hear it. Hey, you use your decision support matrix, your sync matrix, you got graphical control measures, and it's like, much easier said than done. Why? What did you do to modify those, and why did yours work?
Yeah, the first thing we did is build the COP. Right, we built a Spartan Special. We really understood the terrain. We understood not just the MSRs and the ASRs, but all the little trails, where we could use snow machines, where we could use cat Vs, where we could push an infantry company. Movement is slow here, especially as the snow gets deeper. And so there are times that we have to explode. And so we've got to use high-speed avenues of approach, which aren't the roads, right? But it can be trail networks that you get smashed down with snowshoes, and then you're able to move. But the more that we understood the AO, we had checkpoints, objectives, everything, opportunities, risks. We could communicate quickly on the battlefield. And then we started analog first. LTP was all analog. And then we use WinTAC down. So again, we maintained the WinTAC brigade so it could communicate to the ATACs. Challenge there sometimes get everyone on the right TSM. And after we had that, and then we used Maven up for our higher headquarters. So that was the first thing, so that we could communicate where we were and where the enemy was very, very quickly. The better that we war gamed, the better our graphics got, and the better the boundaries got between the battalions. And so that enables fires, because you don't, battalions calling, you're not clearing the ground that that's the battalion. And so the better we did that, the more responsive fires became. It allowed us to manage space, honestly, for like the 40 plus command posts that we have all across the battlefield. The next, and this was more for crew-offs. I didn't personally use this as much, but a good detailed sync matrix and X check, essential. I spent a lot of time on the enemy temp in the red checkbook to understand what the division was seeing, what we were seeing, what effects were the division creating for us. And so, okay, am I fighting the 1st Battalion of 327 or the 2nd? Where's their combat power? What avenues of approach are they using? I spent a lot of time there. And then making sure that was our FUOPs, our next plan had the right considerations, and then the decision support matrix. Clear conditions, which ones were mine and which ones weren't. And I'll tell you, by the time we got to the defense, we built capability, and I've been fighting for the TAC for so long. I was going to fight the defense for the TOC. And so the TOC's like, all right, sir, how are you going to do it? I'm like, I'm right here. This is lieutenants, captains, and NCOs. Like, you've got the plan. You got the X check. You got the CMET. You know everything that's got to happen. You know the priority of fires, what targets, who's calling. We did 2 cars, 2 icy fires rehearsals, 2 technical rehearsals with fires for the defense. And so, y'all know the plan. It's lieutenants, captains, NCOs that are fighting it. If you need some help, talk to the crew ops major who's back there. They'll supervise and make sure that we're bringing it together. Then you get the 3 of the XO. And I'm going to be back here. I'm working on the fast cam and the reserve. Right? And so I wanted to empower the staff, because that's the first time we've all kind of fought together in this scale of an exercise. And the better they do their job, we want to teach it. Right? Yeah. And so it worked out really well. Yeah. And I'm able to imply, impart a little wisdom or figure out where a friction point is and solve it real quick. But you give them the opportunity to fight.
Yeah. You mentioned it a little bit. You said when we did LTP, the leader training program, right? Yeah. As units prepare to go to the CTCs, they go to LTP. Mm-hmm. Here at JPMRC, we do our LTP at home station. Ike Salee brings his team from USERPAC, and they come to you, and they run your team through at Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson. How to do the preparation. You can't just sit back and say, I'll make these 2 decisions. If your captains, lieutenants, majors, if those people hadn't been through this, how was LTP being at home station with Ike's team, and what were the benefits to doing it here versus the benefit of packing things up and say going somewhere else to do it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It doesn't matter where you do LTP. If you got the attitude right and the commitment of the team, it doesn't matter. And now, because you can go, and I've done it with a bunch of different ways, and I'll tell you what helped us with this one. Because if you go forward, you're locked in, that's what you're doing. But you can't leverage the people that you don't bring with you. And there's an enormous portion of the staff, other folks, technical experts that you can bring in and leverage. And so you can work things on FATABs, you can pull things on GeoInt. You use your systems there at home station, but you can't bring everything with you to a CTC. And so I was able to leverage and build shared understanding with people that are there. I worked the same amount of time. The staff worked the same amount of time. The battalion staff worked the same amount of time that we would have anywhere else. And
I can assure you they were committed because I was there. Yeah. I showed up. I saw what time people were showing up. I saw how hard they were working. I saw what time they went home.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more that, like, when we needed that 25 uniform, when we needed that special MOS that maybe doesn't usually go to LTP, that was like, go get Jonesy. And Jonesy runs down and helps solve a problem for 2 or 3 hours. And then Jonesy goes back to what they're over here was so helpful.
Yeah. Like we had a big EW deception plan that we were trying to work, right? So we use Star Shield and Star Links to minimize the signature, work the ITN, upper TI, but we replicated talks. We had magpies. We created ghost retrans just like Strike Brigade did. And we needed their expertise to help us figure out in the plan how to employ them the right way. We also pulled all the legacy systems out. And Chris probably told me he had problems with this. We kept putting them out there and having fake C2 locations that had a good electromagnetic signature and a good visual, right? But I needed that guy. He wouldn't come to LTP. And so we used him. The other thing I'd like to talk about that we did is we used a similar enemy, similar terrain, or the same terrain, and then similar friendly tasks in the order that we got. So it helped us understand the terrain better. It helped us understand the enemy better, and it helped us organize how we think that we would fight. Now, some folks may be like, "Oh, you're cheating." I don't think so. Like the way that I looked at it, it's like if we're going to do this for real, we're going to have an no plan.
When you went to Syria,
you
knew what you were going to be doing.
100%.
You knew who you were going to fight.
100%.
And what you're asked to do.
Yes, and even if it's a crisis emergency, that's like we will have an O plan or a con plan or something that we're working off of, and you're going to start working that before you actually deploy. You're never going to get to order like 6 days before. You may get like a Frago, an update, but it's going to be a change on what we're working in, especially if we're doing a JV somewhere. And so that's the kind of the mindset that we took. Yeah. And so by the time that we had the order from the division, we got it on 6 days before, 5 days before, something like that. But I mean, boss, I know what I'm going to do. You need me to do a JFE. I know that I have to expand the lodgement. I know what terrain I'm going to jump on. I know then that I'm going to go on a brigade attack. If I don't need to defend, I'll keep going, but I'll probably need to defend. Just after 4 days of fighting, I got to regenerate that combat power. And then if I have the enemy on his heels, I'm going after him. And so there's little things that we've got to work with the division, like how are we doing that? Who's responsible for what fire? What does the division in the CFAC have for JC? What do I have for seed on the air assault, right? And so like we did the JFE, Bravo echelons coming in. We got the air assault at P+6. Do I own local seed, right? And do I need to have things to do it, or is the division going to do it? How's that coordinate with the deep attack that's going on? And so all those details get worked out in the plan. But like I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And working through that with Ike, and he was freaking fantastic. Like that whole team, there's so much experience there, right? You got like former colleagues and everybody else that are in there, and it's such an experienced team. He was a great coach, and he helped us to see blind spots. But I've got, like everybody's busy, right? But back and forth between Arctic war fighting, all the exercises in Indo-Pacific. If you look at the P-week methodology, like we're over 50% P1 weeks. And so the opportunity to save time on travel, folks to go home at night, 11 or 12 or wherever they go home, but like they're there for a little bit.
Or an emergency situation.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. It.
Now it's not all roses, right? There are some downsides, Talk about the downside of if I plan this on the exact same terrain with the exact same tasks on the same area, and then a month and a half later, 2 months later, I go to execute it, how we can simply fight the plan and not the enemy.
Oh yeah, and there were a couple of times we had some bias, and we were anchoring ourselves in a plan. I had to plan to get huge lesson for me. I was like, how did I miss this? we had opportunity as we did the analysis of combat power, which avenues of approach would probably lightly defend it. Well, I could take advantage for a flanking attack or an envelopment. And the conditions changed. The weather had gotten so warm that was not a viable route. And
no snow.
No. And the river was melting. So now we're going to have folks isolated on the other end without a good line of communication. And so that cost us about 8 to 12 hours once we realized that. And I'm like, God, how can it be so stupid? Of course it's getting warmer. Of course we know, but we thought we would still be able to do it. So we tested, we couldn't, brought it back over, changed the plan. So you do get some bias that you have to really think through and make sure you validate your assumptions with your higher headquarters, with the enemy. Is he fighting the way that you think that he is going to? Exactly where is the defense? I mean, we were in the area, but the exact location, because we really struggled with Cav, because it just happened that the route they were on, enemies like may attack in that initial 24 hours were right on top of each other. So how do I adjust and use battalion scouts to answer the same PIR or task infantry companies to do that?
Talk about reconnaissance and security and how once you started to do it right, the Alc 4 commander came in here and he said, once you gain and maintain combat contact with me, I was in trouble. Because he had no breathing room for the rest of the time. Essentially, what he did to you the first few days, he gave you no breathing room.
That's exactly right.
He knew exactly what you were doing, and you couldn't paint the picture out front. When you flipped that on its head, and your cav was able to do reconnaissance and security, what were they doing to be successful?
Yeah, it was night and day. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to fight a brigade. The difference is, before we could really get the cav out, I could see 300 meters in front of. And I had a great picture while we had division assets. But then after 24 assets, we weren't doing effort anymore. And so we lose some of the assets. Now and the weather was terrible. And it's windy. So like the small UAS that both us and 111 have, we couldn't.
And by windy, it was 50 to 80 mile an hour winds for 2 days.
Yeah.
Nothing flies at 50 to 80 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
Nothing moves at 50 to 80 mile an hour.
So it's very windy.
Very windy.
So the importance of all weather ground reconnaissance was essential. But until then, I could only see a few hundred meters out. And so after we fought the cav out, really halftime, right? So we finish the brigade attack. We get into the defense. I get the cav 5-6 kilometers in depth along different avenues of approach. I can see where he's advancing. I can see where his formations are. And again, as they're counterattacking into our defense, I got infantry companies over here and infantry companies over here. I know he's only got 3. And I know he's going to deco and a CAV squadron or a CAV troop. And so I know what the enemy has. And so if I see where they are, I can see where they're not. Tactically, it doesn't make sense for him to use this avenue approach. He won't have enough combat power. So I had a really good idea of what their scheme of maneuver looked like. And I had the eyes to use fires to shape the battlefield before the enemy assault came in, while we were improving our positions with blades and everything else. And so I couldn't see everything, but I could see enough to shore up one position in the east I thought was going to be vulnerable, take combat power from a position that was probably, we could assume, risk over here, refine planning guidance for the brigade reserve. And honestly, because it was so early, I was able to refine some of my fast game targets based on where I knew he was going to attack, just based on the way that he was positioning himself. And so at the end of the day, I got eyes out, I'm employing fires, and I'm shaping the effects so that the enemy isn't bringing all of the combat power, right? And so, again, we survived wave 1, survived wave 2. Wave 3, we did not have the ass for that. But and then in the pursuit, what we try to do is transition very quick. It's really cool at this point, negative 30.
Because what happens at minus 40 to minus 50?
Yeah. So if it's up to minus 25, there's really no change, right? Negative 25 to negative 35, we've really got to be careful and deliberate because the risk increases as you get to that zone 4. Now, after negative 40 to negative 50, it is really, really high risk. Very limited movements.
And why?
Because it'll kill you.
It'll kill you, right? It's like your skin freezes,
100%.
balls freeze. Like you're not moving around anymore by minus 40.
Right.
And it's just survive.
That's right. And so, I mean, things really start breaking. Things really start. So you kind of got to go to
How many generators did you go through at minus 40?
all of them. I think Chase went through like 7 generators or something. The last one finally died. Well, this was throughout, and that was a little bit earlier.
But what's critical there is that the fundamental thing that you just said, power generation and surviving, we had the same challenges with the 25th in the heat or in the Philippines. Like at a certain amount temperature, generators also overheat.
Yep.
And people overheat and they die in the heat, right? And so the restrictive terrain of a jungle is very similar to the restrictive terrain here in the Arctic of Poland and Akio, that certain things cannot happen at those extreme temperatures or extreme climates.
Yeah. And what we found is, the standards for folks that haven't spent time up here, you got a squad, 10-man tent with a heater, and they drag it on a sled, right? And that's step one of how you move your equipment around.
Because you can't move back to your sustainment.
Right. It's got to be with you. And you have your Arctic sustainment, which is a heavy load.
How fast did it go from minus 15 to minus 35 with the winds being between 50 and 80?
Yeah. So it was 48 degrees. I think day 2 was the high. And then it started to drop over the next couple of days. We had high winds for 3 days, but it was still, 10 degrees outside. And then in about 24 hours, it dropped to negative 11, then negative 33. So about 24, 48
So
hours.
if you're not always prepared for the minus 40, it'll be on top of you before you.
Right. And now we found some creative ways to continue to move, but put the Akios, in a sustainment vehicle or pull them behind snow machines or use the cold weather all-terrain vehicle to stack those things and keep them about 500 meters behind the folks, because you're moving, you stop, it kind of catches up to you. That's how we were able to maintain tempo in the pursuit.
Other units in the Army and other partners that we have are also training for how to thrive and survive, or survive and then thrive in the Arctic and then win in other parts of the world. How did the CATV work? How did that final objective go where you utilized it there?
Yeah, those things are fantastic. And, we primarily use them for C2, so we can have a mobile C2. That was my TAC, 2 CATVs. I really fought out of one, and then I had some other support in the back. And so we kind of come together. And then we use it for sustainment, for equipment, and some personnel movement. And so, there's a reason a lot of the other, our partners and allies have, mechanized or motorized forces, because that movement is critical. I see the CATV, the CG said, this is Jimmy Howell, it's the ISV, right, of the Arctic. And it's a really good platform. So I had a plan. The way we tested them, I have 11. I took 2 for my TAC. I gave 2 to the CAV. And then the rest we all gave to 1 battalion. Because I really wanted to test the concept of using them in a battalion and what advantages that would give us. We planned very early to go to the west side of the river, use that avenue of approach, because it would make the enemy either emit combat power. So I was trying to either fit him out so I could hit him in the middle. Then he hit me in the middle, so I had to come in tight. And we went tight. It's like Army football, running the fullback right up the middle, over and over and over and over and over. And then we get down into the fourth quarter. It's like 2-minute drill time, and we finish the defense. We're in the pursuit, and we recognize we have an opportunity. I know. I'm canalizing his forces where I want them to. Our field artillery regiment, PFAR, they're the main effort, hit with fires, and I know the back door's open on the west side of the river. The conditions have changed. The weather is cold. The river is frozen. We go out, we do reconnaissance, we test it, we breach the enemy obstacles they had at a couple different fording sites. We get over to the west side, move 30 kilometers in 2 hours.
Wow.
To get the one line of communication they had to the south, the bridge. And so we isolate the remainder of the enemy on the east side of the river. Through a little bit of intel, found the brigade headquarters. And so we isolated the enemy, and then we found the brigade headquarters. But 2 hours in captive.
Yeah.
Instead
of, it was taking about an hour to go 200 to 300 meters before that. What does it take to thrive and survive, or survive and then thrive? What are a couple of those conditions up here?
Yeah, it starts with great NCO leadership, right? There are certification courses we do that teach people how to wear their equipment, how to operate, the tents and the heaters, how to move over snowshoes, how to ski, how to shoot. And so you take that baseline training You train your NCOs, you train your cadre, and they're the ones who train the formations. And so you got to work on that. And I'm going to preview, I'm not going to steal it, but the rules of the North that 111 has, it's a great mindset.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there. But you've always got to prepare those things. In NCOs, this is why I think Alaska is so great. The environment's going to kill you. And so your leadership has got to be dialed in. And talk about hands-on intrusive leadership, checking hands, checking toes for cold weather injuries, the right gloves. If you have the wrong gloves in the wrong temperature zones, you get new people who aren't used to being up here. If I just take my gloves off and grab something, like you're going to immediately get contact frostbite. And so the leadership has got to be really, really good.
Yeah.
And it helps create just a good culture because we hold each other accountable, right? We've got that. You got to hold each other accountable with airborne operations and jetmaster proficiency. And so, I mean, we do land that like there's bears out there. Like there's a whole contingency plan for bears, so they don't get you.
One of the things that I noticed when I came here was as soon as I start talking to anybody up here at the 11th Airborne Division, they always start off with, "This is my 9th winter."
Yeah.
This is my 9th, like, just like our OCs from JRTC, this is my 28th rotation.
Yeah.
You guys always start with, "This is my 2nd winter. This is my 13th winter."
Yeah.
Like, this was my 13th deployment, it was like, and it immediately told somebody that you could be trusted. You know what you're doing because of that. This is truly turning into the Arctic division and not just a division in the Arctic.
Absolutely.
It's a division that understands what it's like to survive and then to thrive up on here. All right, so as we get ready to land this plane, like we always end with "so what?" Like what are you? We just did the AAR. We're data saturated at this point. Everybody's been told, go back, do your final AARs, make sure you put this on paper and start with your corrective training, or not corrective training, but like your retraining as we go back. But like, what's your big thing that you're going back and you're immediately working on? Because you're not just going back and that's it. We won the Super Bowl. It's over.
Yeah.
No, you're going back and you're getting right back after it, and folks are going to be deploying again here soon. What are you working on, and what are you hoping to sustain?
Yeah, I mean, every unit took a bunch of different things back, and everybody's kind of got their 1 to 2 levels down. The 3 things I told the brigade at the end of the day are really want to focus on. 1, to go version 2.0 on our SOPs, our PSOP, particularly, and our TACSOP. And I think we tested a lot of things out here that we have been tweaking. And I think if we talk fighting products and everything else, I gotta make sure we capture that and we can transition to the next team and they understand it. Because it does. It comes down, efficiencies come down to SOPs. The second thing we talked about is, again, the one airborne brigade assigned to the Indo-Pacific, we've got to be great at that. And so, again, this is the biggest one that we did. And so we've got to take components of that and train it into other JFEs with, brigade headquarters. And so that's joint integration, great work with the CRG and the BDG and the ASOS on those operations. We did a wet wing defuel special refueling operations where we're taking fuel off of a C-17, putting it into our stuff so that we could use it. But the next step is doing that to set up a farm, right? So as the division does a deep attack, we can set it up, get fuel on a Bravo echelon, bring in the FARP so that the aviation can then come back, rearm, refuel, go hit again to double those legs. So anyway, the things that went really well, we want to keep improving those things and get just better drivers training for static loads, all those type of things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's the JFE component, and we did this with 6 different air squadrons, some from PACAF, but as we get back into Operation Pathways and operations out in the Indo-Pacific, building the team with the 15th Wing and all the other folks that are out there to demonstrate, one, practice the joint force supplementary capability that we have, and then 2, to demonstrate it. And it's DLOs, it's not just Army training objectives. And so the first thing we should ask as a force is, hey, what are your DLOs? What can I do to help you with gas or water or ACE or anything else? And how does that tie into the JFE and help build that joint team? Because it doesn't just come together. Folks have got to practice it so we can have that option for the USARPAC commander and the NOPACOM commander. And then the last thing that I put, we're going to go through conversion. The CAV is no longer going to be 140 CAV. They're going to be 2187 infantry. Decos are going to go away. Love the things that are going on with the folks that are doing the TIC transformation. And so how do we build a multi-purpose reconnaissance company? How do we build a multifunctional reconnaissance company?
Yeah.
What tasks do we need infantry companies to do that are more reconnaissance type of tasks without that capability? Because the thing that I learned here, man, if I have all-weather ground reconnaissance out in front of the FLOT and I've got TFAR ready to go, I can shape the battlefield.
Sure.
And so we've got to figure out how to do that over the next, really set conditions over the next 6 months so that we're executing the year 2. So when we do Op 4 for Chris Farley next year, right, like we figured that out, we're testing it. We tested more in the Brigade FTX we do the next fall. And then when it's our turn, JPMRC in 2 years, we're humming.
There was a couple things that I picked out from my lens. One, I watched the 25th. Now I watch you guys out here and go through it. And it's brigades. We absolutely have to have an answer when you come to the CTCs, when you go into combat for reconnaissance and security. And everybody needs to understand how to call for fire. Reconnaissance and security is everybody's business.
We also have all the infantry captains coming into that course.
It no longer should be called the Cavalry Leaders Course. I think it should just be called the Reconnaissance and Security Course, F4 more, where people learn how to tie their PIRs to information requirements and named areas of interest, and then go send people, scouts, or if you have your small UAS, you can use them at that last 300 to 500 meters, if so. But you can't be banking on that. It can't be your only way to kind of collect. Number 2, from the division level, it is the D-150 and the RSOI back briefs that you start to say, this is who I'm bringing to combat. This is what I'm bringing. This is the status of my equipment. This is what's working. This is what's not working. My AFATADs, this is so I can have digital fires. This is how many guns are working, trucks. You need to understand that well before you show up to the CTC. It also reduces a ton of the stress in those 5 days where you're going through RSOI and you're about ready to execute. If you've thought through that and you've already had that conversation with your leadership, it's not so stressful when you're going through those last few days before you go across the LD. And then from a combat training center standpoint, we are looking for the right people, because not everybody's coming to the 196th, and not everybody's part of JPMRC, but there are people that we bring together, the right people, the experts in EW, the experts with human, the experts with fires. Like, they come to JPMRC to put their expertise and share their expertise with the brigade combat teams that are out there. My job is to find those people, align them throughout our JELP process, and align them with our future exercises. What are you looking forward to the most over the next few months?
I got to think about that. I will tell you, like, this is what you did. I'll kind of end where I started. What you did in the team, in the division, it's the first time I've ever been trained like that, with the division. And it was the best training I've ever had. Everybody I've talked to within the brigade is just ecstatic about the training that we had. And we're coming out on a high, right? And so from now on, our job is to carry that and teach and make sure that we recover the right way and we prepare for exercises a little bit better. So we're going to lose people. And so we're probably the best we're going to be trained, like right now. But starting tomorrow, people are going to start to leave. New people are going to come in. And so if we could take some of this, right, everyone's doing their part at their echelon, and you say, hey, listen, here's how we did this in JPMRC. This worked, this didn't. This is the new SOP. Then we're bringing people at a higher level. What we've seen with JPMRC over the last several years is every iteration is a little bit better, right? And it's because we're taking lessons from the last one and we're incorporating it in the training schedule. So we've got to do that. But it's a good feeling. And the way that you all have designed, everybody feels like they win, right? Op 4s feel like they win. Blue 4 feels like they win. And it's not because it's all happy and fun and everything. And it's, but like, it is hard conversations. But the winning in a CTC, it's not about getting to the final objective, right? Winning is about showing up prepared and getting better every single day, which I think we did because of y'all's work. And it's just a great feeling, man. The brigade's been working hard on this, not to pass CTC, but like, this is the best test we have for combat, right? And so now the next time we get an opportunity, we're going to be a little bit better. It'll be a little bit better. And I'm thankful to be part of the team, man. Best mission in the Army. Team,
For sure.
Teams should be better. So,
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks,
Appreciate you, Matt.
Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts and better yet demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.